Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Black Privilege. Now I know y'all saw the headline, and I want to try to make my point as perfectly clear as possible. I am not saying that Black Lives Matter is wrong in its movement, in its existence. I am saying that it is wrong because it is a feminist institution. It's going to take men to deal with their situation, and I'll explain why. First of all, let's identify what our terms are. Feminism is advocacy for the advancements of women's interests at all costs, which in most cases there's nothing wrong with it. But when the actual feminists are fighting for little more than to seek attention or to validate their gender studies degree in Western civilization, post-colonialist oppression, blah, 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 that's all well and good. But what we're actually talking about when we talk about BLM is the murder of Black men, the murder and the possible suicide of Black men at the hands of law enforcement officers. Black Lives Matter is a feminist institution. It's what we call in the manosphere gynocentric. It is squarely focused on what women want out of Black men. And I'm here to tell you that that is not going to work because, for one thing, Black Lives Matter isn't interested in the vulnerabilities that lead to the death of Black men. For example, a young Black man by the name of Marshawn McCarroll he committed suicide in front of the Ohio courtyard steps. Personally, I could attest to it that he had bouts of depression. He was homeless for extended period of times, and he tried to fix his problems to BLM, and all he got was feminism, feminism, feminism. Conversely, Laquan McDonald in Chicago, he was another case where Black men were going through prolonged episodes of depression and anxiety to the point that he felt it was okay to walk down the street with a knife ready to end someone's life because his life had no meaning. Autopsies revealed that he had cigarette burns from his mother's multiple fucking boyfriends. He was molested countless times by the men that his mother would bring to the house. And when he finally had enough, some petrified white police officer decided that I am not going to die. I'm going to take this Black man's life. And all that matters to BML is the fact that he was shot. All that matters is his martyrdom status. It's not Black Lives Matter. It's Black Martyrs Lives Matter. And I know these people would like to tell you that Sandra Bland was also a martyr, but let's be honest. The young lady had mental health issues, and in all likelihood, she took her own life. This was suicide. What I am telling you is that the men that get into these physical altercations with law enforcement officials, y'all need to prepare for the fact that it actually might be suicide by cop. It might be state-assisted suicide that leaves a not Sean Bell, Mike Brown, or a Marshawn McCarroll or a Laquan McDonald into ending their own life by balling up their fists and going head charging on to a hail of bullets. Why? Because you only give a fuck about our deaths when a white man takes our lives. That's my problem with Black Lives Matter. And why do they do that? Why is it important for them to only recognize martyrs rather than suicide? Well, Black Lives Matter, as I said before, is a feminist organization. They only care what's in the best interest of women. And what's in the best interest of Black women is to have strong Black masculinity, regardless of what evidence is pointing out to the contrary. Black men are not supposed to commit suicide. Black men are not supposed to wallow around in a state of perpetual helplessness. Black men are not to be a victim of circumstances. They're supposed to be strong. So when they end their lives or something ends their lives, it could only mean one thing, that someone took it by foul play. But let me make this abundantly clear. Black men are tired of fighting with other fucking black men. Black men are tired of fighting with the infidelities and the drama of being black men, the unimaginable pressure to protect and provide for your family in a world where there's only violence, and expressing your happiness in a relationship is fucking contraband. Black men are tired of being black men, so they fucking, they go out in a blaze of glory by fist fighting a cop. This is not to say that Tamir Rice or Eric Garner or Walter Scott deserved what atrocities that came upon them. No. I'm saying that every case should be handled on an individualistic basis. But the overall principle is, the ignored overall principle is that black men are dealing with serious issues to the point that they don't know how to deal with it. They ball up their fists against law enforcement officers and refuse arrests. They refuse to comply with law enforcement to the point that shots ring out. Each case is an individual, so I'm not going to justify this, but what I'm saying is that Black Lives Matter only gives a fuck about black men when they die. They don't give about the overall power structures that lead to that. They don't want to address the fact that there's so much masculinity shaming in the black community that suicide is almost preferable than living your life as a man, then he can't feed his family. We're men, all right? We're men. We know the rules. You're supposed to protect and provide. You're supposed to be able to swallow up all your hurt and pain inside so that your family could be happy. But I don't think that notion of masculinity is going to be around for too much longer. Capitalism is a fading institution. Capitalism is running out of masculine social capital to sustain us. Capitalism is in its waning days, and we need to talk about what's going to happen in a post-interdependent, post-patriarchal society. We need to talk about what we're going to do with the weak men if we consider weak men to be an abomination. Mike Brown is an interesting example because he is at the cornerstone of what happens when black machismo meets defeatism, hopelessness, and guilt. This young brother balled up his fist against a law enforcement officer and tried to take his gun. Now, if you ever try and take my gun, please believe that I'm going to put 2 to your chest and 1 to your fucking cabbage. But first, before I put 2 to your chest and 1 to your cabbage, I'm probably going to shoot you in the kneecap, restore your breathing, stop your bleeding, protect your wounds, treat you for shock, ask you if you are okay, put my gun in your mouth, and fucking blow your brains off. There is no way in hell Mike Brown had justification to going after Darren Wilson. That was complete and total black suicide. That was state-assisted suicide by cop. But it's not erotic to the women running the Black Lives Matter movement, so they would rather make him a martyr of unjustified violence upon his person. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Unless you women are willing to recognize that the society is destroying black men, it's also destroying white men too. Unless you're willing to admit that we need to start moving away from the classic notion of masculinity where the man does everything and he's supposed to take it with a smile, don't be surprised that these incidents happen. Don't be surprised at a Marshawn Carroll or a Laquan McDonald. You do not want male vulnerability, so you act surprised at male suicide. That's what makes Black Lives Matter evil. I don't know. I guess that's all I wanted to say. Gentlemen, I hope I didn't offend too many people with this, but if it makes it any consolidation, please remember this. Truth without love is cruelty. Love without truth is hypocrisy. I'm not here to be a hypocrite. I'm here to tell you that I love you gentlemen as black men, even though that sounds real homo. But yeah, Black Lives Matter. Unless you stop appreciating martyrs, don't pretend like you give a fuck.